Tell me this. I've heard you once reference the Scofield Bible, and you talk about, if it was a while ago, if you can help me connect the dots here and just give us a brief history. Like you were mentioning, if I remember correctly, something about the Scofield Bible and a certain theology that was being pushed, that from there it kicked off what today we have from the Christians who got fed this into the Christian Zionism.
Yes.
This move, is that correct?
Yes. So you have to go back. I can take the story back into the 1700s, but where it really started to come together was the early 1800s. In the 1830s, there was a man in Ireland, and his name was John Nelson Darby. And he was a young Anglican, Church of England, Church of Ireland, an Anglican priest, and he became dissatisfied with the Church of Ireland, and he began holding his own meetings. And eventually he moved to England, and he was in a town called Plymouth. And his meetings, the people who came to his meetings, they got the name the Plymouth Brethren, the Plymouth Brothers, okay? Well, anyhow, Mr. Darby, it's not so much that he invented things, but it was like he was collecting strange religious doctrines that were out on the far, far, far edge of the Christian church, that few Christian leaders took them seriously or even heard of them. They were very strange, extreme ideas. But he kind of picked them up like he was putting flowers in a basket. And then he sewed them together and he made a theology. And I call it Darbyism. It's dispensationalism. I have a name for it, Dipsyism, and it's DPPZ, dispensational, premillennial, pre-tribulation Zionism. And he created this theology, and it really didn't go anywhere. He eventually died in the around 1880 something, and never really made any success with his little movement. It's interesting, Eddie. I have a lot of books here. These are real books. These are not props. I have about, I don't know, somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 books. And I buy mostly old books. And Eddie, when you go back, you don't really have to go too far I'm talking about Christian books, Christian theology books. You don't have to go back too far, and Zionism disappears. It's not there. Mm-hmm. If you had gone to seminaries at a certain time in America, you never heard of Zionism. Somehow it got into the seminaries and the Bible colleges. So Mr. Darby died. Excuse me. He died. He wasn't famous. But a man named Cyrus Scofield came around, and he was a con man. He was a flim-flam man. You know what a flim-flam man is? These are terms. Mm-hmm. He was a hustler. He cheated people out of money.
Mm-hmm. Like a charlatan.
A charlatan. And he went to jail. This is back in the 1800s. He was a liar, a cheat.
This is Scofield?
Yes, sir. This was Cyrus Scofield. Mr. Scofield was a less than honorable man. And he did go to jail for cheating people out of money. When he got out of jail, again, this would have been around the 1880s. When he got out of jail, he was introduced to a preacher in St. Louis, Missouri, who knew John Nelson Darby. And somehow Mr. Scofield instantly became a Christian preacher. Mm. He just got out of jail, and suddenly he's an expert on the end of the world. And he started traveling around as a Christian Bible expert. He took on the title Dr. Scofield, a doctor of divinity. Mm-hmm. He never went to college. He never went to seminary. He didn't have any degrees. He was a liar. And on the front page of the Scofield Bible, it says, Dr. Cyrus Scofield. And that was a lie. Well, he came up with this idea of taking John Nelson Darby's doctrine and putting it in the Christian Bible. So I have a Bible here. Okay, this is not a Scofield Bible. I've got a Scofield Bible here somewhere. So they were put in as footnotes at the bottom of the page, explaining each scripture. So a person reading the scripture would look down at the footnotes, and there would be an explanation of what that means. He took John Nelson Darby's ideas and put them in the Bible.
Wow.
All right, so now wait till you hear this. Scofield didn't have any money. He was always broke. Somehow, he was given a membership in the Lotus Club of New York, which was a high society private club of very famous people. He couldn't afford the membership. The membership was more than his salary. You had to be invited, you had to be sponsored. The man who brought him into the club was a powerful lawyer in New York City who was either the president or the vice president of the American Zionist Organization.
Wow.
Okay.
It's starting to come together now.
Yes, and that lawyer is the man who wrote the law that was passed in 1913 that gave us the Federal Reserve Banking Act. The same lawyer. So this lawyer arranged for Mr. Scofield to travel to England, and he got a meeting with the executives of Oxford Publishing at Oxford University. And Mr. Scofield came back to America with a contract from Oxford Publishing and an advance money. Then another gentleman came on the scene. His name was Arno Gaebelen. And he was supposed to be a Christian preacher, but they said he spoke Yiddish so fluently that the Jews of New York thought he was a Jew. Well, he came on board as a paid editor for Mr. Scofield, but Mr. Scofield really didn't have the money to pay this guy. This guy named Gaebelen is actually the man who put all of John Nelson Darby's ideas in the Bible. Then Oxford published a Bible over in England, and then Oxford gave away, what I was told, Oxford gave away 1 million copies of the Bible in the early 1900s to get the Bible into Christian churches. That's how Scofield got inside the door of the churches. Then Christian denominations, Bible colleges, seminaries began teaching the Darby doctrine, the Scofield doctrine. And it was written, it was designed by Zionists. And it didn't really have much, it didn't have a lot of impact in the 1920s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. It didn't get a lot of following until you got to 1970s. And there was a book called The Late Great Planet Earth, written by Mr. Hal Lindsey. He's still alive. He's almost 100 years old. And that book sold 40 million copies. And it was Scofieldism. It was Darbyism. It was Zionism packaged as Christian doctrine.
What's it saying? What are the key teachings in there that differentiate it from the King James Version or any other Bible?
Well, what they teach, hold on. What they teach is that Jesus is going to come back twice. And that's not in the Bible. No Christians ever believe that. But they teach he's going to come back twice. He's going to come back and remove the Christians, take them to heaven. And then there's going to be 7 years of tribulation, of wars and famines and all kinds of bad things happening. And then the Antichrist is going to gather his armies to attack the Jews in Israel. And then Jesus is going to come back again and save the Jews. That's the doctrine.
And that's not in the King James or any other Bible. This is specifically, this was, where is this actually in the Scofield Bible? Is this in, how did they interject this and throw this in?
Line by line, these footnotes at the bottom of the pages of the Bible, and they created this Zionist doctrine that eventually took over the Christian churches in America.
I see.